Hello and welcome to the second webinar in the Sound ACH weekly webinar series. My name is Lindsay.
And I'm Michaela.
And we'll be guiding you through today's webinar, a debrief on the May 22nd Equity and Tribal Sovereignty Training event. Before we get started, please note that your lines are and will remain muted for the duration of the webinar. We encourage your participation and ask that you please chat your questions in at any time using the chat box in the Zoom window. Only the facilitator can see your questions, and any questions we receive will be addressed during a 10-minute Q&A session at the end of the webinar. Any questions not answered due to time will be addressed in a frequently asked questions page uploaded to the partner portal along with this recording. Now, I would like to pass it over to Liz Baxter, CEO of the Sound ACH.
Good day. My name is Liz Baxter. I'm the CEO of the Sound Accountable Community of Health, or the Sound ACH. And this webinar is part of a series of resources for our implementation partners, those organizations in the Sound region who are working with us to transform health and how we approach health and services for people who live in San Juan Island, Snohomish, Skagit, and Whatcom counties. The other thing that we're doing is really a follow-up to the launch of our Tribal and Equity Learning Series, which that launch occurred on May 22nd in Linwood here in our region. One of the things that I mentioned during that gathering, and will just kind of reinforce that here on this webinar, is that there's a reason why the Sound ACH decided to put the tribal relationships and a commitment to equity in the forefront. There's a lot of our work that is measured by data, it's measured by encounters, and one of our premises for how to create long-lasting impact in the region was really built on the premise that if we can both build better relationships across sectors, so with non-tribal partners, with our tribal partners, that if we can get different people working with each other differently and building relationships that will continue long beyond the Sound ACH, that we actually felt we had a greater potential to hit the metrics, to actually improve health in ways that we probably can't even imagine now as we're working independently from each other. So this commitment that the Sound has made, it is a commitment from our board, from our team that works with me, and we are then taking that and we're asking all of the organizations who want to contract with the ACH, we're asking our partners to take that on as part of the projects that are moving forward. So I've been asked a lot, so why are we spending time on this when we have so many topics that also need our attention? And a lot of them, translate into letters, from hemoglobin A1Cs to VBP to ESPERT to TA and QI. And we have so many things that our partners are being held accountable for and are being measured against. And we actually still said that this came first, that we will be better at understanding what's expected of us in value-based payment arrangements, or in how we screen and refer for behavioral health or substance use disorder treatment, how our team actually approaches technical assistance and helps you with quality improvement. We're going to be better at that if we have a better understanding about the people in our region and the people whose lives we are actually trying to make better. So we launched the Tribal and Equity Learning Series with two presentations. The first one from Children of the Setting Sun, that's based here in Bellingham, and they just introduced us to the notion of what it means to build relationships with any of the 8 tribes in the Sound region. And then Dr. John Powell of the Haas Institute, who spoke about the concepts of bridging and belonging, and how some of the things that are happening around us are trying to break potential relationships between disparate groups, and what it is that we can do to bridge some of those things and create a region where everyone feels like they have a sense that they belong. We think that this work is daunting most of the time. And just personally would love it if at some point all of our partners actually understand and can talk about the 8 tribes that are in this region. So Nooksack, Lummi, Upper Skagit, Samish, Stillaguamish, Tulalip, Saxawatle, and Swinomish. Each of them brings such richness and creativity because they know that they have both been here since time immemorial and that they will continue to care about the people that they serve, both tribal and non-tribal members. So starting there was very significant for us. This journey that we're on is about listening, learning, and taking some actions. We have been asking partners all along the way what they need from the ACH, and we asked that again on May 22nd. You shared some of your ideas with us. We want to tell you what we heard during those sessions and out in the hallways and on the way into the building and out. And obviously we want to connect you with some equity and tribal engagement resources, some of the things that you requested of us. This is not the only time that we're going to be talking about this. We see this as just a journey that we're on together, but this webinar is our next step on that journey. So thank you for joining us on this webinar, and I look forward to our next steps together. I'm now going to turn this over to our team to introduce you to the topics that are going to be covered in the rest of this webinar.
Thank you, Liz. As partners know, the North Sound ACH has committed to using targeted universalism as a framework for pursuing equity in our region. In the past, we've hosted several events and conversations where we discussed targeted universalism. But our May 22nd event focused more on the topic of belonging. One piece of feedback we heard from some of you is that you wish we spent more time on targeted universalism at the May 22nd event. So today we're going to start our webinar with a brief video explaining the concept. Then we'll share additional ideas and information you provided at the May 22nd event, focusing on actions identified by you, our partners, to advance equity and meaningful engagement with tribes.
What is the most effective and sustainable policy response to problems in our society? Universal approaches are widely used in order to package policies for broad appeal. Universal policies such as Social Security and minimum wage laws provide the same benefits or minimum protections to everyone, regardless of status or group membership. But by treating everyone the same, universal approaches can't root out group-based discrimination and may actually deepen inequality between groups rather than reduce it. And by providing benefits or protections to everyone, resources that could be targeted to groups worse off instead flow to those who are better off. In contrast to universalism, targeted approaches are commonly used. Targeted policies provide benefits or protections based on group membership or status. SNAP, the food stamp program, conditions benefits on income level. The Americans with Disabilities Act requires public accessibility for disabled groups, and affirmative action focuses on historically disadvantaged groups. Targeted approaches are vulnerable to the critique that they unfairly favor constituent groups over the public good by directing resources to marginalized groups who are already subjected to unfair stereotypes. But universal and targeted approaches are false choices. There is a third way: targeted universalism. Targeted universalism means setting universal goals that can be achieved through targeted approaches. This approach targets the varying needs of each group while reminding us that we are all part of the same social fabric. This can be accomplished by following these 5 steps. First, set a universal goal. For example, 100% proficiency in 8th grade math. Second, measure how the overall population fares relative to the universal goal. In this example, we might discover that only 80% of 8th graders are proficient in 8th grade math. Third, measure the performance of population segments relative to the universal goal. So although 80% of all 8th graders are proficient, we might find that only 70% of Latinos are proficient. Fourth, understand how structures and other factors support or impede groups' progress toward the universal goal. For our Latino students, classroom instruction materials and lessons designed for English speakers may impede learning, including math proficiency. Finally, implement targeted strategies so that each group can achieve the universal goal based upon their needs and circumstances. This may take the form of ESL-specific math tutoring for our Latino students, while another group may require a completely different strategy to achieve the same universal goal. Targeted universalism rejects a blanket universal, which may be indifferent to the reality that different groups are situated differently relative to the institutions and resources of society. By aspiring towards shared universal goals, targeted universalism empowers targeted strategies capable of achieving those goals, while moving us beyond concerns over disparities alone and toward our highest aspirations for all.
So that's a brief overview of targeted universalism. This year, the North Sound ACH will be working to identify our region's universal, the first big step in implementing this framework. Stay tuned for more updates on that process and how you can be involved. Now, let's dive into your ideas from the May 22nd breakout sessions. We know it's important that we close the feedback loop from this event, meaning we want to tell you about all the great ideas you shared with us, especially given that we were spread across 4 breakout rooms. So today, Michaela and I will go over what our team heard partners say in those sessions, and then provide recommendations and resources for advancing equity and tribal engagement in your organization. Okay, let's get started. We'll start with key ideas related to how you can meaningfully engage with tribes in the North Sound region. So, Michaela, our partners participated in this event and shared a lot of great ideas. Can you tell me some of the things we heard partners say about engaging with tribes?
Of course. Partners gave us very clear messages around what they want and hope to see moving forward. There were requests for more tribal sovereignty training, paired with accountability and structures for forming partnerships with tribal nations. Partners want to build bridges and relationships with tribes.
That's great, Michaela. So I'm hearing that partners requested assistance. While the North Sound ACH is here to help, partners also identified several things they want to do now, today, to build relationships with tribes. Michaela, can you share some of those ideas and any tools that could be helpful?
Yes, Lindsay, the first step would be for partners to do some background research on the importance of land acknowledgements, and then use that research to develop and implement a land acknowledgement of their own into their organizations.
Great. And where can partners go to begin that research on the importance of land acknowledgement statements? How can they go about drafting a land acknowledgement statement in their organization?
Well, the North Sound ACH used a really helpful toolkit from the U.S. Department of Arts and Culture to develop and implement a land acknowledgement statement. We recommend partners check it out. With that statement in hand, the North Sound ACH begins each internal and external meeting by acknowledging the traditional homelands of the Coast Salish people. And that's just one example of how partners can use this statement to further embed equity in the fabric of their organizations. A land acknowledgement is the first step in highlighting the presence and resiliency of the indigenous peoples of the United States. Partners, please note that this and links to other resources, along with a recording of this webinar, will be found on the Partner portal.
Great, thanks, Michaela. That's a great example of a first step toward building relationships with tribes at the organizational level. So, Michaela, what about partners who already have a land acknowledgement statement and want to do more? What's the next step for them?
That's a good question, and one that reflects some feedback we received after the event. A partner noted that to have real impact in this area, we need to dismantle current power structures. One way to do that is to set some standards for your organization or team around cultural competency and sensitivity trainings. Need an idea of a training to get yourself or your team started? The government-to-government training offered by the Governor's Office of Indian Affairs is intended to fulfill this very purpose. This training is encouraged for all partners and all staff at the organizational level. The North Sound ACH staff are required to attend this training, and we've learned so much. We are aware that you may not be familiar with this training, so we have provided a link to the Governor's Office of Indian Affairs website so you can learn more. We have also provided a link where you can go to register for the government-to-government training directly. Again, watch for this link in our resource post in the partner portal.
Great! And Michaela, why is this work on tribal sovereignty so important?
Well, understanding tribal sovereignty is critical in an organization's ability to appropriately interact with tribal nations. Treaty rights have implications for our work and partnerships with tribes, and it's important to understand that. The best way to understand that is to do the contextual groundwork of understanding the history and relationships that tribes have with the United States. Furthermore, in order to build bridges with tribes, partners need to understand the importance of the historical knowledge that tribal nations and their members carry. Undergoing the government-to-government training can help partners begin to understand tribal sovereignty, the historical relationships between tribes and the United States government, and what that means for engaging appropriately with tribes.
Thanks, Michaela. That was a great summary of what we hear and a couple of very actionable steps partners can take. Now, let's shift the discussion to health equity and what we heard from partners about equity on May 22nd. Our partners really dove in and provided great ideas and information during discussions. Michaela, can you tell me about some of the things we heard partners say about equity? Where are they starting from? What are they excited about? And what are their challenges?
Our partners share that they are at different stages of practicing equity in their organizations. Some are struggling to find tangible things they can do to move an equity approach forward in their organizations, while others are farther ahead on the journey.
It sounds like partners are starting from different places, but that means we can learn from those who are further ahead. Michaela, what are some actionable tasks that partners can start doing to move equity forward in their organization?
Well, first, let's remember that this is a journey. We at the North Sound ACH know that as a region of partners, as individual organizations, and indeed as individuals themselves, will have challenges and bumps on that journey. Sometimes it will be easier and sometimes it will be more difficult. It is not a test or a challenge, it's a journey and we're on it together. The first step is to understand where you are and where your organization is on this journey. Lindsay, partners can use this resource from the Racial Equity Alliance to help them identify an equity champion at their organization, or maybe a team of champions who can assess where they are and begin making recommendations about how to operationalize equity in their organization.
Michaela, what else might partners be able to do to help foster equity within their team and organization?
If you, your organization, or team has made a commitment to pursuing equity and are ready for a training resource, consider the Roots of Health and Equity training. The National Association of County and City Public Health Officials created this educational training to help the public health workforce recognize and act more effectively on the social injustices at the root of health inequity. While it may look like it's targeted only toward people working in local health departments, it's really for anyone interested in understanding and taking action to address the root causes of health inequity. And it's free. There's no cost to participate, even as a team.
That's a great resource, Michaela. Partners, please check it out and let us know if you intend to use it or suggest it to your organization's leadership. I'll reiterate something Michaela said earlier. Advancing equity is not a destination or a test or a single challenge. It's a journey. You'll hear us use this language throughout our work together. In our contract with partners, we asked you to commit to joining us on this journey, and all partners have made that commitment. If your organization has barriers to meeting goals determined by those commitments, or if you need additional assistance in engaging your organization's leadership, We would like to provide support to help you and all partners meet the goals necessary to advance equity in our region. Please let us know by emailing us at team@northsoundach.org, and your designated ACH project manager will work with you to address any needs. We all have different starting points on this journey, and the North Sound ACH recognizes that. Your stories and feedback help us to help you. We need your voice in order to develop specific strategies to advance this work. We believe that challenges, delays, and barriers to implementation are just as beneficial to discuss and work through as hearing about your successes. We are your North Sound ACH, and our team is ready to support you. Lastly, we want to say that though these ideas may seem small and incremental, they really matter. Imagine the impact we can have in our region if our partners take small steps together. This work takes time and intention. The commitment to taking these steps is foundational for achieving equity in our region. If you have additional questions, please email us at team@northsoundach.org or call our office at 360-543-8858. Additionally, please remember to mark your calendars for the upcoming North Sound ACH weekly webinars. The next webinar will take place on Wednesday, June 19th at 10 a.m.